All right, there's another option that I haven't brought up yet, and that's the student fee option. I know this one is distasteful, but this one can have some pros as well as cons that we need to look at. Costs being shared gives us leverage where we could use more of the budget to make sure that this one-to-one goal is met quicker. Students fulfilling a contract under a fee schedule would automatically be able to keep that device, and I would recommend after 3 years. So we don't get into the scenario that this is what I was given in 7th grade and I'm now a 12th grader and it doesn't work anymore. We don't want that to be the case for these students. So that means we would need to update the devices about every 4th year, which is the most healthy cycle to be on. That's like the minimum. I would prefer, if my dream world were out there, every other year we would update everybody's devices, but that's very unsustainable, and I realize that. But I still present it saying, in terms of technology, that side of it, we need to think, are the devices effective? Or will they meet their needs? It does bring an additional fee to students if we did this, and we would have to start in 7th grade and charge that fee right through senior year to make this work.
Like the full cost of the device, or would it just be?
Not the full cost. That's why I said there's a contract to be fulfilled. So after you've paid the fee for 3 years, you own the device.
So it'd be.
And you wouldn't have paid the full price of the device there. You would be paying essentially what we would surplus the item for at the end of a 3-year cycle anyways. And that would allow that student to take ownership of that device right from the beginning and keep that ownership. So there are ways to do this, but there's a lot to be worked out in setting up a fee structure for the devices. The other thing that happens if you go to this model, though, we will increase our management of devices and the rotation. So we would have to include in that what are the support people that are involved to make that kind of a cycle occur and continue. And then we have policy issues that I already mentioned by the state. What do we do when we get to the point that the state says to us, this student can't have a device at school anymore because they've broken the protocols, the rules for being on the system? And that's a big issue right now. I don't know that there's a lot of thinking around how to deal with that. It is every bit as complex as the attendance policy. And it becomes that type of issue, and it will become very emotional, very personal for everybody involved. And the blanket approach will not fit every situation, will not fit. It even needs to be adjusted based on the size of your district or the type of curriculum your district's providing. If we take a device out of a student's hand, because that's policy, we have to be prepared to provide their education in another way. So where is the paper and pencil equivalent of what we're doing on devices if that's the direction we're going? We have to consider these things.
Well, if it's student-owned, how do you do that as well? Can you take a device away if it's owned by the student?
If it's student-owned, I can just tell them to leave it home, and I can keep it.
Well, but if they're using this, if they have a student-owned device that they're using in the schools, can you take it away if they own it?
Here's where student-owned gets complex. It's student-owned. I have a student username and password that lets me access the school system now, not just at school, but anywhere I have access to the internet. So as soon as I leave campus, I've broken the rules on campus, but now I'm off campus. I would have to, as an IT department, to force the student not getting on our system, block their username and password as a part of enforcing the policy, which means they now can't access it at home or at school and can't do any of their work online with our software or other purchases that we've come across. So that's an example of how complex the device policies can get in terms of taking away access, whether it's actually taking the device out of their hand or just blocking their usage as a user. And that doesn't account, again, I can tell you, 5 minutes after we block their username and password, they'll be using their friend's username and password, doing the same thing on our system. So you can't do that. It's not. So the thinking, I understand, is very quick. We'll just deal with it. We'll kick them off. Well, it's not that simple. It really is not that simple.
And Dave, it can change from, we've had a couple of incidences where the student has the device and it changes from class to class to class, depending upon, what they have done. And so the IT person has to go through and change that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Every
a programming
time.
nightmare, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Or we put it on the teachers and we say, this student can be on devices at school, but only at the front of the room with you watching them the whole time. Well, what does that do to your teaching effectiveness in the classroom if the teacher's got to keep an eye on this kid the whole time they're teaching because they may have something out, doing something online on the system?
And if you have sitting here, and then you have the other.
Listening to another conversation.
Yeah.
Happens all the
Yeah,
time.
I can't imagine anyone doing
We
that.
had one time, we had a student where they had their laptop, but then there was another screen in front of them, so the teacher could see every single thing, that the student was doing. But like you say, they
We have
have
one
to.
teacher in this district that puts every student's desktop, what they're doing, is up on a monitor, and you can see what everybody's
So you
doing.
can see all
at the same
28
time.
or whatever.
All
That's
28.
what all the, yeah, that's what.
That's possible to do. Well, that helps us monitor
Yeah.
some things, but it still is only during that class period. And what we're talking about is a curriculum that moves way beyond the class period into every setting. You could be doing it at the park. You could be doing it at home. You could be doing it on vacation. You could do your homework or schoolwork anywhere you go with these devices now. So that's our reality. And I don't think in that world we can keep everybody's stuff up on a monitor and have somebody watch it all the time to make sure they're doing the right thing. That's an unmanageable
Do you want to get into
solution.
recommendations?
Okay.